I'm about to turn 39, and I keep hearing the same thing over and over again, that this is the age where things start going downhill. That you slow down, that your best performances are behind you, that improvement becomes maintenance. But I don't know if I believe that. Because I keep seeing runners in their 40s and 50s doing things most people think are impossible. And it makes me wonder, how much of our limit is biology, and how much is just belief? So this season of my running life is an experiment. I want to see how good I can actually get, not to prove anyone wrong, but to find out what's still possible. And honestly, I also want to talk about something that's been sitting in my head lately. The idea that your running times equal your credibility. As a founder, as a runner, as someone building a brand around this sport, does my performances matter more than I want to admit? Today, we're talking about age, performance, identity, and what happens when you decide you're not done improving. Cue that intro music.
Who says you need to fly to reach the top? Keep beating your block till your feet are hot. Get your head out the sand, join the flock. It's okay to run scared, we enjoy the lie.
Welcome back to the Ostrich Running Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Miraz, and today, it's just me and you. All right, so we're going to do something a little bit different today before we get into it. I just want to talk. No structure, no setup, just talk. I'm turning 39 this year, and I know that's not old. I know that. You're in your 50s or 60s right now. You're probably rolling your eyes at me. And honestly, that's fair. But there's something about watching that number tick over that hits different when you're a runner. Because running has this weird relationship with age. Like the sport has already decided what you're capable of based on what decade you were born in. And I've been feeling that lately. Not from other people. Well, sometimes from other people. Sometimes the juice will tell me I'm a little too old, but not really. But mostly from myself. This quiet little voice that shows up on hard training days, like today, and it says, maybe this is just who you are now. Like decline is something that just happens to you. Like it's a tide coming in and the best you can do is stand there and get wet. But then I look around and you know what I see? I see runners in their 40s running sub 3-hour marathons. I see guys in their 50s lining up at ultras and finishing ahead of people half their age. I see 60-year-olds who are just now figuring out what their bodies are capable of. And something in me just goes, wait a minute. What if the story I've been telling myself is wrong? What if getting older in this sport doesn't mean the walls are closing in? What if it just means the game changed? What if I haven't even found my ceiling yet? That question has been living in my head for a few months now. And today, I want to really pull it apart. I want to talk about age. I want to talk about performance, about what it actually means to get better. And this is the part that makes me a little uncomfortable. I want to talk honestly about why I push so hard. Because I'm not sure it's always for the reasons I tell myself. So we're going to call this episode Getting Better with Age. And I want to be clear from the jump. It's not a motivational speech. I'm not here to tell you that age, it's just a number and anything is possible if you believe hard enough. Not that greeting card stuff, right? You deserve better than that. What I want to do today is actually wrestle with this, honestly, because the conversation around aging in running is very complicated. And I think we oversimplify it in both directions. So let's start with the narrative that's out there. The one most of us absorbed without even realizing it. You peak in your mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s if you're lucky. After that, it's just maintenance. After that, you're running for health, not performance. After that, the PRs are done and the goals become just finishing. That's the script. And look, I get it. There's some biology behind it. And we'll get into that in the next segment. But the script gets applied way too broadly and, in my opinion, way too early. And it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy where people stop pushing because they've already decided the ceiling is. I've seen it happen. I've probably done it. You stop chasing a time goal because you tell yourself, I'm not 28 anymore. You don't sign up for the race because I'm not where I used to be. You start defining your running by what you were rather than exploring what you still could be. And social media definitely doesn't help at all. You're scrolling through Strava or Instagram and you see some of these younger guys posting splits that make your eyes water and your ego shrink simultaneously. I'm talking to you, Xavier Smith. I'm talking to you, Dallas. You guys are incredibly fast and I am so jealous of that. And instead of feeling inspired, you feel disqualified. Like the comparison has already been made and you lost. I talk to runners in their late 30s and 40s who are embarrassed about their times. People who are out there every week, putting in work, genuinely loving the sport. But they've internalized this idea that their pace is something to apologize for. That's insane to me. But I also understand it completely because I've felt it. I'm feeling it. There's a fear underneath all of it. And the fear isn't really about time on a clock. The fear is, what if my best days are behind me? What if this thing I love, this thing that became part of my identity, what if I've already peaked inside it? That fear, it's real. And I'm not going to dismiss it. But here's what I've also seen. And this is what keeps pulling me back. Master runners, genuinely elite master runners, people who are running their fastest marathons at 42, people who didn't find serious training until their late 30s and went on to do things that would embarrass most 25-year-olds, people who treated their 40s not as closing a chapter, but as a second gear that they haven't found yet. That exists. It's not rare. It's not some freak genetic anomaly. It often is just what happens when experience, consistency, and real training intelligence finally collide at the right moment. And it's making me think, maybe the ceiling isn't fixed. Maybe the ceiling moves when you stop believing it's fixed. And maybe we've been measuring our potential against the wrong thing this whole time. Now let's take a quick break for one of our sponsors, us, Ostrich Running. Look, I've tried every electrolyte product out there, the super sugary ones, the ones with the gimmick salt, the tablets that take forever to dissolve. On a lot of these, they mess my stomach up. But Ostrich Salt, it's different. Simple. Just pure electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and magnesium malate in the ratio your body actually needs when you're sweating through mile 30, 50, or 80. I created this because I needed it. When I was out at Kodiak 100 running through the night, cramping was not an option. When you're managing 100 miles, you can't afford to bonk because your electrolytes are off. So I made something that works. No artificial flavors, no BS, just quality ingredients. And here's the thing, whether you're running ultras or you're just trying to get through a hot 10K without cramping, your body needs electrolytes. That's not negotiable. Now head to ostrichrunning.com and grab some electrolytes today. Use code SALTY6 to try your own 6-pack for $6. Okay. Now I want to get into the actual science of this for a little bit, right? Because I think it's important to go here honestly, rather than just cheerleading our way through it. I think we all agree with that, right? Yes, the biology is real. Age does things to the body. I'm not going to stand here and pretend otherwise because that would be doing you a disservice. VO2 max specifically, which is basically your body's ability to use oxygen efficiently during exercise. That does decline with age. It starts dropping somewhere around your late 20s or your early 30s, and typically about 1% per year if you're sedentary. Even with training, you're generally fighting against a slow downward pull, and that's just the physiology of it all. I know I got super proud when I went over 54 for my VO2 max, only to immediately be humbled by one marathon runner, Xavier Smith, when he showed me his VO2 max. I believe it was maxed out. Let's just say that. Very humbling, right? Your recovery, it changes too. You know this if you're in your late 30s or beyond. What used to take you a day now takes you 2 or 3. The body's inflammatory response after hard efforts is different. Sleep becomes more important and also somehow harder to get. I suffer from this every day. All I want is sleep, but I feel like I'm going to bed later and later. These little windows where I get a chance to enjoy being with my wife become shorter and shorter and later in the day, especially when we have things to do with the kids, things to do with work. These little moments are fleeting. So I'll stay up later just to spend those time and those moments with my partner. But I'll tell you what, not sleeping a full 8 hours during this training load probably severely has affected my ability to improve. Muscle composition shifts, fast twitch fibers, the ones responsible for speed and power, those become harder to maintain and develop as you age. It's one of the reasons raw sprint speed declines earlier than endurance. Your top gear gets a little harder to find. And I'm not telling you any of this to be discouraging. I'm just telling you this because it's important to have an honest baseline. Because if you understand what's actually changing, you can actually work with it instead of against it. But here's where it gets interesting though. Because on the other side of all that biology, something else is happening. And I think we dramatically underestimate it. Training intelligence improves with age, genuinely. The runners I know who've been in the sport for 15 or 20 years, they have a feel for their bodies that no 23-year-old can replicate. They know when to push. They know when to back off. They've made the mistakes. They've had the injuries. They've learned through trial and error what actually works for their body. That knowledge, it's worth a lot. That knowledge translates to better training decisions, better race execution, better long-term progression. Discipline, it improves. It's kind of like adulting, right? The consistency required to actually develop as a runner, that's often easier for older athletes to sustain. Life starts to make more sense. Priorities clarify. You stop wasting energy on things that don't matter and you get better at protecting the things that do. A lot of the older runners are just more consistent. And consistency over years compounds in ways that raw talent cannot even touch. Mental toughness grows. The ability to sit with discomfort during a hard effort, to not panic when things get hard mid-race, to trust your training, that comes from experience. From having been in the dark place before and knowing you've got through it, that's a real advantage. And then there's the stuff we have more control over now than we did at 25. Well, if these were only my problems at 25, we would probably be having a different discussion right now. But nutrition, strength work, sleep, recovery protocols, things that maybe we ignored or didn't know about when we were younger. Things that if you layer them on top of smart training in your late 30s and 40s can genuinely change your trajectory. So here's the frame I've landed on. And this is the thing I want you to take away from this entire segment. Biology sets the boundaries. Effort determines how close you get to them. Your physiology is going to do what it's going to do. You can't stop VO2 max from doing its thing entirely. You can't fully overrule the recovery curve, but there is so much space, so much territory between where most of us are actually running and where our biology is actually capping us. So much room inside those boundaries that most of us never even explore. I think about that quite often. I think about how close to my actual ceiling I've ever gotten. And I honestly don't know. I've never really found out. And that's what I'm trying to figure out right now, which is what I want to talk about next. But before we do, let's hear from our sponsor, Alethea Run. We spend so much time tracking pace, distance, heart rate, and all these external metrics, but we don't track the thing that actually matters most. How we're moving. Alethea is a sensor that clips to your waistband and tracks the force your body experiences when you run. Not just you're running 8-minute miles, but how your body is actually absorbing impact. Whether you're braking too much, whether one leg is doing more work than the other. They call it a force portrait. And when I first saw mine, it was like, damn, this is what's actually happening when I run. This is where I'm inefficient. This is where I'm setting myself up for injury. And here's why this matters. Most running injuries don't just happen. They build over time because of the imbalances and inefficiencies we can't see. You're overstriding. You're landing too hard on one side. Your form is breaking down in ways you don't notice until something hurts. Alethea catches that before it becomes a problem. You get personalized feedback after every run. Tells you exactly what to work on, not generic advice, but your specific issues based on your unique biomechanics. I'm not saying this lightly. If you're serious about running long term, this is the tool you need because staying healthy is how you keep showing up. Head to alethea.run and use promo code RUNSCARED10 today. I want to be honest with you about where I'm at with my own running because I think it's relevant to everything we've been talking about. I'm treating this period, like this season of training, as an experiment. Not in a casual way, in a real intentional, what actually happens if I do this properly kind of way, right? And the question I'm running the experiment on is simply, how good can I actually get? Not compared to who I was at 25, not compared to the guy on Strava with ridiculous splits, Xavier Smith, just what's possible for me now with what I know, with what I have. Because I think there's a version of this where I've been coasting, not lazily, right? I train hard. I'm consistent. But coasting in the sense that I've never really pushed all the variables at the same time in the right direction and held it long enough to see what happens. There's always been, an excuse or a season of life thing, something that just kind of resets that clock. I've always just said, hey, I want to just finish this distance. I want to just go out there and finish, right? But I've never pushed and said, how fast can I finish? And the more times that I finished, I think the more that question became in the front part of my mind. And this is me deciding now out loud that the story changes. The difference in how I'm approaching training now versus even a few years ago is real. Now, when I was younger, the training I did was, kind of play for me. I trained with all this enthusiasm, not structure. I just went out and did my thing. I played soccer. I played football. I just went hard when I felt good. And if I didn't feel good, I just didn't give it an effort. I was under-recovered. I definitely under-fueled, right? I think I focused too much on strength over cardio or vice versa. But I never really had a structure of training. I never went to be a collegiate athlete. My time was me joining the military at 17 years old. I was still a baby, right? I look back at the the person I was joining and the person I got out, I thought I was a grown man at 21 years old getting out of the military, and I knew it all. Oh boy, did I have a whole decade and not more about learning. I got away with a lot of it because youth covers a lot of those sins. Now, I'm building slower, more deliberately. I'm treating recovery not as a reward, even though it feels like it for hard training, but as part of the training itself, right? I'm actually doing the strength work. I could be better at my mobility. Shout out to my coach. I know every day, I'm going to get better. I promise you. Let me just do it at my own pace. And the interesting thing is I feel better in training right now than I've had in years. Not every day, but trend-wise, I feel like I'm going in the right direction. And the other thing I'm doing differently, and this I feel like is an important thing, is I'm willing to fail publicly this time. That's really new for me. I mean, I'm the guy who went out to run a marathon on his own at Back Bay Harbor a week before the actual first OC marathon that I was going to run just to make sure I could do it. Gosh, that was crazy. See, I'm still not done learning. This was in my 30s when I decided to do this, right? We all have a learning in life and a learning in our running journey, right? But that's still new for me. I've always had this thing where I didn't want to set big goals out loud because if I miss them, everyone's going to know. And I believe all of us sell ourselves short in that sense. Better to keep expectations low and be pleasantly surprised, right? It's a very safe way to live and it produces very average results. So this is me putting it out there. I am testing what's still possible. I don't know what the answer is. I might find a ceiling sooner than I want to be honest. But I'd rather find my actual limit than spend my life assuming I've already hit it. And that feels like the only way to respect the experiment. You know, so I think I can publicly say this next 50K race that I'm going to do for KH Races, O'Neill Park, I want to try to podium. Yeah, there's a lot of great runners out there, and we're in Orange County, California, so it really depends on who shows up to this race, but I'll be damned if I don't give it a shot. I want to podium a race at least once in my life. And I know it's a shorter distance at the 50K, so we're going to find a lot faster runners. But if I can give it my all, I want to see if I can do that. Okay, so this next part, this is the one that I've been sitting with the most. And honestly, the one I was really tempted to skip for this episode, which is probably why I need to go there. I always say if you're uncomfortable, you're in the right spot. A while back, I came across a post from one of these running content creators. And it said something along the lines that your running times are often associated with your credibility. As in, if you're running a podcast or a brand or you're a coach, right? Your times are what give you the right to talk. And I want to unpack that because my initial reaction was very defensive. And anytime my initial reaction is defensive, it usually means there's something worth looking at underneath it all. So let's actually ask the question here. Is that true? Does performance equal credibility in running? On one hand, I get it. There's a real thing here. If someone is telling you how to run a sub 3-hour marathon and they've never ran one, you'd want to know that. Lived experience matters. Doing the thing you're talking about, that matters. There's a reason we listen to coaches who are athletes. There's a reason we trust advice from people who've actually been in the situation. So in that sense, yes, performance and credibility are very much connected. But is it a direct line? Is a 3:05 marathon automatically more credible than a 3:45? What about a 5-hour marathon? Does the person running faster automatically have better insight, better perspective, more worth listening to? I don't think it's really that simple. And I think when you draw that line too cleanly, you end up excluding some of the most valuable voices in the sport. The runner who struggled for years before figuring it out? The one who came back from an injury? What about the one who runs slower but runs smarter and has helped dozens of people stay in the sport who were about to quit? How about that person? Are those people less credible? But here's where I need to get really honest with myself, because this isn't just a philosophical question for me, it's personal. When I think about why I push so hard right now, how much of this is genuinely for me, and how much of it is about the brand? Because Ostrich Running exists now. It's real. People are listening, and I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a part of my brain that connects my performance to how seriously people take what I'm doing here. Do I feel pressure to prove something? I kind of do. I'm not going to dress that up. There are days where the motivation to train isn't coming from a love of the sport. It's coming from this vague anxiety that if I'm not improving, if I'm not posting better times, then something about what I'm building here loses legitimacy. And I think that's worth saying out loud. Oh boy, I hope it's worth it, because it feels crazy to even put it out there like this so boldly. But I suspect that I'm not alone in that. A lot of people who run and create content around running carry this weird weight where the two things start to blur together. Your performance becomes your resume, and that changes your relationship with the sport in ways that aren't always healthy. Here's the insight that I keep coming back to, though. What if credibility isn't actually about speed? What if credibility is about honesty and the effort? Because think about the content or the people or the voices in running that you actually trust. Are they the fastest runners? Or are they the ones who are real with you? The ones who show the hard days and not just the highlighted reel? The ones who say, I don't have it all figured out, but they keep going anyway. The most credible moments I've had, the feedback I've gotten that mean the most, it's never been about a time I ran. It's been about something that I've said that felt true. Something honest. Something that made a person feel less alone in their experience of this sport. That's not nothing. That might actually be everything. So, where does that leave the brand? Where does it leave Ostrich Running? I want to be really clear about what this thing is supposed to be, because I think sometimes I lose the thread of it when I get too deep in my own head. The mission of Ostrich Running, the actual why behind it, is to help runners stay in the sport, to help them feel like they have a space where they're not outcasted, where they're not broken, where they're lifted up and celebrated and praised just as much as that 2:15 marathoner. Running saved my life. I mean that literally. not metaphorically. There was a period where this sport gave me something to hold on to when I didn't have anything else. And that's the thing I'm trying to give back. That's the thing Ostrich Running is supposed to be in service of. So when I ask myself, does the brand need me to be fast? Does it need me to hit a specific time to be legitimate? No, it doesn't. What the brand needs is for me to be real, to keep showing up, to keep being honest about the process, including all the parts that are hard and unglamorous and uncertain, to keep running, not as a performance for anyone else, but because it genuinely matters to me. My performance is an expression of all of that. It's me living the thing I talk about, but it's not the requirement. The requirement is authenticity. The requirement is genuine care for this community and this sport. And I think when I confuse the two, when I start treating my races like a business KPI, I lose something important. I start running for the wrong reasons. And the running suffers. And the content suffers. And probably my mental health suffers a little bit too. So the reset for me is this. I am going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep experimenting with what's possible. But I'm doing it for me. For the love of finding out. For the joy of the process. For those out there who want to see if somebody can. Hey, if he could do it at that age, can I do it? That's what I want. I want people to see that it's possible for one individual to push beyond the narrative that has been set for us. So, I'm going to do it for me, for the love of finding out, for the joy of the process, for the version of this sport that still gives me something. And if this journey is useful to you, if watching someone figure it out in real time helps you figure something out too, well, I guess then Ostrich Running is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So, let's bring this home. I'm not trying to beat 25-year-old me, even though I'm pretty sure I would dust that guy right now because that guy was a drug addict, alcoholic, and probably couldn't run a mile and a half anymore. That guy, he's gone. He had advantages that I don't have anymore. He could stay up all night for weeks on end, party, go to work, party, right? But that's not me now. I have things now that he never did. I am a different man than that boy was. Two different people. And I'm definitely not trying to beat anyone else out there. God, I know that there's the people that I compare myself to and I wish I could be. There's no absolute way that I would beat them. And also they're 25 years old, so whatever. The comparison game is one I've already decided I'm not going to win because it's not actually a game with a finish line, to be honest. It just keeps moving. It's a moving target. What I'm trying to do is see what's possible now in this body, at this age, with everything I've learned and everything I've been through. I want to find out what happens when you actually take it seriously in the right direction for long enough. I want to know what my actual ceiling looks like instead of spending my running life assuming I've already found it. Because I think that's a question worth living. I think that's a question that keeps you in the sport long past the point where most people drift away. The runners I admire the most, the ones still going strong in their 50s and 60s, they have all that quality. They're still curious. They're still experimenting. They're still treating their running like an open question rather than a settled fact. That's who I want to be. And age is a part of the story. It's an honest, real part of the story. It's not the whole story. It's not the determining chapter. It doesn't get to write the ending because improvement doesn't stop. Evolution doesn't stop. Not if you refuse to let it. Now, maybe the goal isn't to stop aging. Maybe the goal is just to keep evolving. So thank you for spending this time with me today. This episode meant a lot to put together and went some places I wasn't fully expecting when I started outlining it. And I think that's usually a sign that something worth saying got said. If this episode landed for you, if something in here resonated, if it sparked something, share it. Share it with someone in your life who needs to hear it. Leave a review. Send me a message. I genuinely read all of them, and they genuinely matter to me more than I probably say. And wherever you are in your running journey right now, whether you're at the top of your game, Xavier, or you're rebuilding, or you're somewhere in the messy middle just trying to figure it out, keep going. The ceiling isn't where you think it is. Until next time, run scared, keep flocking, moving, and cue that outro music.
Who says you need to fly to reach the top? Keep beating your block till your feet are hot. Get your head out the sand, join the flock. It's okay to run scared, we enjoy the lie. I'm an odd kid, like an ostrich. I got a pod, kids, here's a topic. Blaze your own trail, don't be cautious. 2 birds, 1 stone's how I rock it. Can't make an omelet without breaking a shell. But the say grew up, now I'm raising hell. Haters gonna hate, yeah, they pray and you fail. So put in the work, whether pavement or trail. The grades fell down, but they got to their feet. Run your own race, put this pod on repeat. Shake your tail feather, keep nodding your beaks. Ostrich gang, or you're not my peeps. Who says you need to fly to reach the top?